Hello, hello, and welcome to ohmTown Daily News Show. Today we're in the time machine going back to May 31st, 2024. It's Season 3, Episode 152. Whew. Okay, so the time machine is going to warm up pretty quick, so we're going to have to get through these articles pretty quick. I am Mayor Watt. Above me is the sentient AI from the future.
Good evening, kind of, ohmTown citizens.
Today we're going to be talking about private data for a cup of joe, Canadian cops capture classic cars, Geneva auto show closes, Robotic third thumb, Radium filled Mussels downstream, Anchor Brewing anchored to Chobani, Cyberattack hits 600,000 routers, or routers depending on where you're from, orange juice that isn't orange juice, Starship continues to fail to launch, and why we board on the left. That and more. All right, folks. Again, welcome to ohmTown Daily News Show. Go over to ohmTown.com. All of this is powered by ohmTown.com. Let's just get into this. Let's get going. We're all set up. If you type in !ODNS in chat, you'll get all of the links for today. In fact, because the way that VODs work around here, I'm going to do that for you, ODNS. I type that in and it throws it all into the chat. And then if you hit !pod, you'll get the links to the podcasts. And there's 7 podcasts that are updated each weekend. And one of those, ohmTown Daily News Show, is every single day a new podcast is dropped. So there's over 1,000 episodes total across the network right now, most of which are in ohmTown Daily News Show. So we talk about 10 articles that are funneled into, and not the whole article, just a little snippet that's provided by the sources. And we talk about it, have a little fun. Sometimes we go back in time to make up for a day that we lost. Yesterday, I had some mayoral duties that I needed to take some time out to complete. And so I couldn't make the podcast on time, and I figured I wasn't going to rush it. So we have a time machine. Let's use it. Let's go. This first article is over in Technology Today. Would you trade your private data for a fancy cup of joe? This is an article over at CNET. Would you?
Well, I would not, but I suspect most people go, what's the problem with that?
And you're doing it anyway, by the way. So people pay with their personally identifiable information every day without realizing, but would they make that choice knowingly? So I have a campaign that I call Click with Care. It's kind of a grassroots movement that's focused on making everybody fundamentally aware that you can be exploited rather easily by a simple email. If you send me an email and it has anything embedded in it, you're never going to get a click from me. In fact, for many years, I ran an anti-spam mail service that blocked spammers' mail from ever even leaving the spammer servers. It alleviated a lot of pain on the internet. Servers that relay messages would never be able to launch their spam bullshit. But people didn't want to pay for it. And because it wasn't ad driven, I can't support spam by spamming, essentially. The service slowly died off. This is decades ago now. But if people knew that their personally identifiable information has been parsed constantly by everything from your ISP all the way to your credit card to the company that you're being served by, this cup of joe alone, the sequence is turning into tranches of value to somebody, and they're willing to pay for it. Even your location. GM just got a slap on the wrist for selling personally identifiable information to data brokers. Well, CNET, Bree Fowler over at cnet.com, put this article together. The deck statement says what I just said about would people make that choice knowingly. And so this click with care concept extends into this. I'm not affiliated with this discussion or anything. I'm just talking about a parallel. The reason why I know about it, why I value personally identifiable information, is because I grew up with the slow death of privacy. And they're talking about it here. Cappuccinos, croissants make for a delicious breakfast, even more so when they're free, but are they worth your personal data and privacy? It says Surfshark, a provider of consumer antivirus, virtual private network, and other privacy products, wanted to find out, so it took over an upscale New York coffee shop Thursday morning instead of paying with cash or credit. The sometimes confused customers who walked in were asked to hand over pieces of their personal data. A cappuccino or
I'm
latte.
guessing the majority did.
Yeah. Let's find out. Yeah. So, and I've actually done this myself. I've gone into coffee shops to give technology demos of how hacking takes place, how a denial of service attack takes place, how I can listen in on anything that is transmitting but not protected by using software-defined radio technology. And I can actually pretend to be the very hotspot that you would use at said coffee shop. I can pretend to be a McDonald's. I can pretend to be your ISP. And I can even monitor your device so that when it broadcasts the name of the Wi-Fi hotspot that you have connected to over time, since you actually activated your device, since the last wipe and refresh, I can replay your access point, and you'll connect to it because you trust it, and you shouldn't. So a cappuccino or latte cost them their email address, while exotic single origin pour overs required them to hand over their mailing address. Food like
Okay,
avocado
that's
toast or
funny.
quinoa.
Like, there's tiers.
Sure. And it's exactly what I was describing. There's tranches of value that one organization will pay more for than another. And I would love to spin up my anti-spam mail server again, but I would need to know that people are willing to pay for it because I can't run it out of bubbles and hugs. So there were some strange looks for sure, but more often than not, people jumped at the chance to get something for free in exchange for something that they don't really think is personally identifiable. But it says that mirrors the everyday behavior of people who are all too eager to hand over their phone number to get a discount at the grocery store or an email address to rack up rewards points. I give this story when I talk about technology that years and years ago now, Target predicted that an underage teen girl was pregnant by her purchasing habits. And when she went from buying like frilly things and smelly things to unscented things and health related, curative and whatever related things to pregnancy, they sent a coupon book. Congratulations, underage teenage girl, on your pregnancy.
That is not what it said.
And dad got really upset about it. And lo and behold, dad says at the end of this whole discussion, oh, I guess some things were going on under my roof that I didn't know about. And that's because they had an algorithm running that said, hey, look, your spending habits have changed. Let's give you an opportunity to spend more. And we know your personality. We know what's going on. We know the world's personality because everybody shops at Target. And not to put the icing on the cake so abruptly and abundantly, but they hit the bullseye when they sent this coupon book, reinforcing the idea that they got it right.
Well, it's pretty crazy when companies have that much information about people.
Yep. So my advice to everybody out there is, and we're about to lose a sponsor that isn't even a sponsor, but a future potential sponsor, pretty much every coffee shop that does this, just buy yourself a coffee maker and make your damn coffee at home. It's cheaper. It's more customizable. You're not getting burnt coffee. You're getting stuff that actually meets your particular flavor profile every time. And while you may think that the one that you're buying for your personally identifiable information is good enough, believe me, there's so much better out there that you can customize with flavor shots and other stuff. And you can even bulk it up so that there's more coffee flavor in there. Hell, you can get an AeroPress and do it manually, and you'll have an even superior product than a coffee maker. And if you really want to go hardcore, you fill up a ball jar with coffee grounds and hot water, and you drink through a filter that is sitting inside the ball jar, and you just sit. And you get more intense coffee flavor throughout the day.
I mean, you could do that, but that might not be the best way to drink your coffee.
It doesn't go through the filter. Anyway. So, Brief Owler. Neat article. Go check it out. It's number 1 on our list for today's articles. But the next one is for all you car aficionados out there. Canadian cops capture classic cars, $3 million worth of classic cars, according to this article's headline. Canadian police found $3 million worth of classic cars.
Okay, so how many cars is that? 3?
It depends on how what the car's
the
worth is, right?
And how rare they are.
Yeah, so let's see. Old Corvettes, Ford trucks, arrested 2 people in connection. Both of them you could hear saying, "Oh, sorry." A massive haul. They say massive haul, so I don't know what massive means. Let's say 25 cars. I'll say 25 cars. Has been uncovered by police in Ontario, Canada, following a months-long investigation into a spate of thefts north of the border. Not the American border, the Canadian border. Ontario Provincial. What?
Would that be the same border?
No, because the American border is the southern border into America. Like if you're coming from America's top hat, then it would be the Canadian border. Dun, dun. We're friendly. Apparently, right? We're not friendly with our southern border. Apparently, everybody is all up in arms, right? We're supposed to be.
I'm not touching that one.
We're supposed to be bent out of shape. No. See, this is the thing that gets me not sponsored. Like I can't promote this stream because I've said something, even though it's a character. I don't sit there. Consider it more like Colbert than reality, because there's no. I'm the antithesis of somebody sitting there going, "We should shut down the border." No. Monitor it, yes. Keep a certain level of interaction, sure. But for crying out loud, not a xenophobe. Anyway, let's move on. Ontario Provincial Police recovered $3 million worth of classics, including old Corvettes and Ford trucks, and arrested 2 people in connection. Let's see. I don't know. Whoa. Okay, so the article is over at quartzqz.com by Owen Bellwood from Jalopnik. A collection of 16 cars, so I missed it by 9, including MK1 Corvettes, a Ford F1 pickup truck. That is some old school.
Look at F1? That classic minivan over there.
Oh, that one?
There's a couple of modern ones in the photo.
Yeah. Look at that car,
in the podcast. Those are not part of the classic car collection.
They might be.
Those are actually some truly classic cars, right? They're not
old
just
Corvette,
like 10 years old and they're calling them classics.
Yeah, roadsters. There's some roadsters in there. That looks like a Rolls Royce. So it was uncovered by police in Sterling, Ontario. They don't say anything else in here about the cars themselves, it seems, but Robert Bradshaw, 54, and Gary LeBlanc, 55. It would really be hilarious if I run across somebody I actually know, like mentioned in one of these things, because like sometimes I suspect that there's somebody I know that is doing some criminal enterprise.
Right. And then you're like, oh, if I see them in a news article, then I'll know.
Yeah, like I knew somebody that had multitudes of properties right before the not dot com, but before the 2008 collapse. And then the real estate collapsed, and they still seemed to have all of these properties. I suspected that they were feeling the pinch. They had like said, made some comment, but they didn't seem to be really hurting in any way, shape, or form. I'm like, you don't really look, and you certainly don't act like you are putting in the effort to make this much money. But anyway, long story short. So now these people are facing theft of motor vehicles over $5,000, fraud over $5,000, using forged documents, and conspiracy to commit an indictable offense. So yeah, $3 million is what it could amount to for the value of these vehicles.
I wonder how far away they were from the theft sites, because if they're in a small area, you'd think that'd be noticeable, but they may not be co-located with where the items were stolen.
Yeah, oh, they were all just stashed inside this property. That's wild. Like, what's the purpose of that? You can't drive these cars anywhere. The moment they pop up out of this dust-covered barn or storage facility, you know you're going to get
Do you think they were going to try to sell them like
overseas
or something? Maybe. But it's
I don't know.
interesting too, because the picture of where the cars were kept makes it look like they were collecting other car memorabilia, right? Like they have an
Right.
old gas station sign, or I assume it is.
Yeah, like old cars toy
Like it
cars on a
seems like they
shelf.
actually have an interest in old cars from there,
Yeah,
which
a
is, I
criminal
don't know.
interest.
Well, yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. Next article is over in Technology Today. Geneva Auto Show closes shop after 119 years. We should probably have all of this in four-wheel tech, but for whatever reason, it showed up this Friday. But we'll probably have some of this in four-wheel tech, because not everybody watches the daily show. So we have a weekly show that focuses on each of these niche areas, right? By the way,
That's right. And sometimes we do have one of the articles from the daily in a weekly, but not always.
It crosses over sometimes when it's really interesting. So those 7 shows that we have are ohmTown Daily News Show, which is like the name suggests, it's a daily. The rest are weekly. Reality Hacker, Wanted, Warcrafters, The Continuity Report, Technology Today, and then Four Wheel Tech. 3 of those are Saturdays, and 3 of them are Sundays. And I'm working on an 8th show called Mix War, and I've got 2 more that I am planning that I don't know if the sentient AI from the future will take part in, but we shall see. So this Geneva Auto Show closes shop after 119 years. More than a century-old Geneva International Motor Show will be canceled for good following waning interest from automakers in what was once an unmissable industry event, organizers said on Friday. I think all of this is because of the pandemic and people realizing that they don't have to go anywhere to get information.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, why do you need to travel to a show? You know, if you're in industry or something, maybe you need to go to wherever they manufacture or something, but consumers don't.
Yep. And some people will want to go and see the vehicles or whatever it might be. And I can understand that there's going to be other auto shows, but I think that they're going to be balkanized now. They're going to be much smaller. There just isn't that much demand for it. And I think it's because people reevaluated what was important in going to this. Just like E3 and other massive consortium type of events, but just people are burnt out from it. And And the ones that are surviving, I think, are largely predicated on the idea that you have to go there. Like Comic-Con, you have to go there because for you to experience that atmosphere, it's really about the people, not the stuff. Because you can get the stuff online, you can see the stuff online. But there are other conventions that I think are built around the community entirely. Role-playing game communities will have conventions. But I don't think like music stuff is going to go virtual and it's going to go streaming. And like the likes of YouTube, Netflix, Twitch, etc. But VR is going to come in vogue for a lot of people. But this 120 years, there's another one we're going to be talking about, another product that existed for 120 years and then collapsed.
Oh, yes.
So maybe there's a law here where after 120 years. But this article is over at Tech Explorer. There's no byline, so I'm going to assume that it's from Tech Explorer. The Qatar edition of the event, however, will continue and take place again in 2025. That's the Geneva International Motor Show, but it's going to be the Qatar, probably, International Motor Show. Took place in 1905. That was the first one. Attracted 17,000 visitors and had 2 more editions before a hiatus due to the economic crisis and World War I. The COVID pandemic shut down the show again for 4 years. 4 years.
But that's actually what did it in, right? Because then you start going on without it.
Yep. And people realize you don't need it. In 2019, the year before COVID, it attracted 602,000 visitors and 184 exhibitors. They don't say
Isn't
what
that
the last
crazy?
one was.
Like, it seems like it was doing really well, right? And then it's just gone.
Yeah, they don't actually
people
say.
Don't need it.
Because 4 years makes it 2023, right? 2024, this one.
Yeah.
So what are they actually... They're going to have this one, right? Am I wrong?
I don't think so.
It says the next one...
No, I think they're just not going to have it
done.
in 2024.
Yeah, in 2025 is when the Qatar version of it will exist. So I guess we'll see how many people actually show up there.
Well, that's true, because I guess, if it's such a big draw, people will go to the Qatar location, possibly.
Yeah, I can imagine how much fun the parties are going to be in Qatar. All right, let's keep going. The next article is over at ohmTown Daily. Researchers develop robotic third thumb for one-handed tasks, and I thought, third thumb? Why is that special? I mean, never mind.
Well,
you had to see the video. Because I had two thumbs. Never mind. Nearly everyone who used the robotic appendage in a trial was able to quickly master it. And I said, when I read that little snippet, I'm like, who doesn't have 3 thumbs, for crying out loud? I mean, you visit Chernobyl once and instant third thumb.
I think this is like a voluntary third thumb.
Oh, not
not a radioactive third thumb.
Not one that just spawns randomly on your body because you got too close to something. So Jesus Mesa over at Newsweek.com put the article together, and there's a video that has something to do with NASA test snake-shaped robots named eels in it. Why is this attached to this video? Why is it attached to this article?
No idea. Like, how do you connect it?
Yeah. So there is a little GIF, or GIF if you want to make everybody cringe, of a person using this robotic third thumb that's actually spawned from a strap that's attached just under the wrist. And they're picking up a bottle and removing the lid from a drink bottle. And it's creepy as hell. And I can see the benefit of this. Because then if you didn't have like a pinky or some other way to grip, then
Yeah, or you had limited mobility for some reason in your hand.
yeah. But look how responsive it is. It as long as you have like the palm of your hand, then you could actually get away with having only two fingers because you can grip the doorknob and turn. The thumb is really the most important element of your hand. Without the thumb, life really becomes a bitch. And so this adds that thumb, although you become, all left-handed kind of a thing. Or right-handed. Well, you get an extra thumb. It's
Well, think
pretty
how many
neat.
things you could get done at the same time.
Yeah, you could open tons of bottles. Further, member of the public who tested, it's weird that the way they write this sentence. Further, I think it's members of the public who tested the appendage quickly mastered its abilities and were able to extend their range of movements with almost immediate effect, according to a study published Thursday in the journal Science Robotics. It is essentially a 3D printed third thumb. I wish that they wouldn't really say that third thumb because you only have one thumb on each hand. So,
Well, true, and some of the people who might end up using this might not be a third thumb.
why not just say a 3D printed thumb, not a third thumb? But
Or
that's
a helper
okay.
thumb or something or whatever.
Yeah, helper thumb.
It needs some work on the marketing. I get it, but
Yeah. So this was actually born from the University of Cambridge researchers who are trying to make prosthetics and body augmentation and advancements. And I think it's great. I think it's absolutely awesome. I don't know what all is involved because it looks like there is something on the upper arm that
oh
runs
yeah, like
down.
somehow it's like a sensor or something.
Yeah, and I think what's strapped to their hand or to the arm is a servo motor that reacts to how you move your hand. So when you move, it activates to grab. Or there's some other sensor or something. I'm not quite sure how it is, but it looks like they're using an Apple Watch strap to hold the servo, the actuator.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. So it has this little mechanism right here that wraps around the back of your hand and adds a thumb, and then there's a servo motor on the back of the wrist. They're really pulling away from showing the back of that. I'm trying to find something, but they're not going to show it. On the other side of the person's wrist is that servo mechanism, and then there's something that runs up the side of their arm. That's what I saw from the video little snippet. But it says underneath this image, a robotic thumb is worn on the opposite side of the palm from the biological thumb and is controlled by pressure sensors placed under each big toe.
Yeah, there's actually, I did find a separate article that has pictures and diagrams of each piece.
Got it.
We didn't even know that part was there.
Yeah. So there's a mechanism that actually runs down the full body, and there's a pressure plate underneath each big toe. So you can have it on each hand and operate that thumb with that toe. So when you're walking and you're wearing this, that thumb is constantly moving.
Yeah,
Every
that's
time you take
weird.
a step. Yeah. Hey, whatever works. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I just sent you a picture of that just so you at least have an idea what it looked like.
Gotcha. Okay, let's keep going. The next article is over in the Mobile channel. Mussels downstream from wastewater treatment plant contain radium, a study reports, borrowed from stream beds and rarely moving. Burrowed into stream beds, pardon me. Let me the time machine needs to be able to back up whenever Merwatt
I mean, what's good as time travel?
So, burrowed into stream beds and rarely moving for their decades-long lifespans, freshwater mussels are biomonitors, meaning they indicate how clean the environment is according to Penn State researchers. And that isn't just according to Penn State researchers. Everybody who understands what a mussel is, clams, etc., all of these are filter feeders that end up absorbing all of the whatever is in the water and whatever they consume. It's one of the problems why I have a problem with like shrimp. They pick up mercury and other heavy metals and chemicals, forever chemicals, etc., microplastics and everything else that's down there. Mussels do the same thing. Clams do the same thing. Anything that lives in the ocean picks it all up. But these in particular, if you were to put a bunch of these in mussels and clams and others in a tank of dirty water, they would process out all of the particulates. It wouldn't just sediment down onto the ground. It would be filtered through these things, and then we eat them. Hey, anyway, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Well, that raises other questions about whether humans should eat food like that. But
Yeah.
we do want everybody to eat, I think it's zebra mussels.
Yeah, zebra mussels are a scourge. So as the bivalves feed on organic matter and filter the water around them, their inner tissues and hard shells begin to reflect whatever is in the environment, including radioactive particles. Yum! So the article is over at phys.org by Maria Lucas from Pennsylvania State University. And a pair of researchers from Penn State's Department of Civil and Environment Engineering, CEE, as they call it. Like my area of research and discussion is Science, Technology, and Society, STS. It's fun to turn everything into an acronym.
I thought you were actually going to make some sort of joke, but then I'm like, oh, no, that's what it actually is.
Well, I mean, my doctorate is going to be on CYA, but my area of expertise, as it were, is in Science, Technology, and Society. So these researchers analyzed the composition of mussels downstream of a centralized treatment facility in western Pennsylvania that had accepted and treated fracking wastewater from the oil and gas industry for at least 2 decades. So just so you know, this is how we have found out the ineffectiveness of accepting and treating fracking wastewater from gas and oil industries.
Right, exactly.
But it's taken somebody to research after 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And think how many things have been eaten in the interim.
Yeah. Now the decommissioned facility stopped accepting oil and gas producing wastewater in 2019. The researchers found that even years later, the tissue and shells of mussels contained radium that could be traced back to the wastewater from the fracking in the Marcellus shale, or Marseille shale. I'm not sure how they pronounce it. The rock formation stretches underground from West Virginia through New York and is the largest natural gas field in the country. Their findings are available online now and will appear in the June issue of Science of the Total Environment, as opposed to the outside the environment where the front of that ship was lost. Never mind.
As opposed to Science of the Partial Environment as well.
Right, yeah. I'm only looking at the partial environment. You can look at the total environment, but that's a level of commitment I'm not ready to follow through with. So he explained, one of the researchers explained that other types of wastewater generally do not contain many radioactive particles, but oil and gas wastewaters found deep in the earth and brought out by fracking often contain specific unique element ratios, a kind of signature that can be traced. You can actually do that with a lot of metals as well. Find out the material composition of metals, trace it back to the mines where they were originally mined from. The unique ratios of radioactive elements allowed the team to identify that the source of the contaminants is likely the treated shale wastewater, the Marseille or Marcellus. Is it Marseille? Do you think it's Marseille or Marcellus?
No, I don't. I think it's Marcellus.
Okay, the Marcellus shale wastewater. So, yeah, to collect the samples for radium analysis, Catherine Pankratz, a doctoral candidate in CEE and first author of the paper, contacted the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection to get a permit to sample mussels in the Allegheny River. The DEP biologists who offered to help with the collection identified the species that were present, then randomly collected 10 eastern spikes once again. A common type of mussel from 4 designated locations along the river. This is why things are expensive. You can't just go grab one. So the radiation exposure is measured in dose units known as microsieverts. The research compared the radioactivity of the sampled eastern spikes to Brazil nuts, which take up radiation from the soil in which they grow, which is a very well-known thing. A lot of nuts and other plants, fruit-bearing plants, pull radiation, radioactive materials, particles, into their fruiting bodies. It's wild. So there are islands out there where we've nuked things as tests, where the fruit that's growing is radioactive, hot fruit.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Isn't this area the same area where they just discovered a major lithium deposit, or am I mistaken?
I don't know. You'll have to look. I'm not sure. Pennsylvania?
I thought so.
So the Allegheny River? Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. If you search for it, I'll keep talking about this.
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh, really? That's interesting. What a hot mess. So I wonder what they're going to do about that. A 28-gram serving of Brazil nuts contains 0.47 to 0.80 microsieverts, while the maximum value calculated for a single mussel collected by researchers in the study was 63.42.
Wait, what? And this is where nuts are known to collect radiation?
Yeah.
Look at the difference. I mean, the percentage difference is ridiculous.
Yeah. So to put this, your thumb right on the button of this, this means that a shit ton of radioactive material is flowing through the waters of the Allegheny.
Well, exactly. That's the real takeaway, right? It's not that the mussels have it, it's how much must be in the water.
Right. How much is in the water for it to filter through the collective bodies of all of these mussels?
And that isn't a single mussel.
Right. And it was the maximum. So I'm sure they have other values for the others, but the location was random. There were only 10 of them. So there was a 1 in 10 chance of it being a hot zone. But why would that be the hot zone? Now you have more research to do, and you have investigative journalism.
You need to look downstream from any industrial activities.
Or upstream, because it's flowing downstream.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's fine. And then you have to go downstream further and keep on looking, right? The researchers found that half a kilometer downstream of a discharge site, mussels had approximately double the total radium levels as those upstream of the discharge site, which is interesting. Why double? Just because it should have nothing in the upstream level,
you'd think.
And mussels 5 kilometers downstream of a discharge site had less than the mussels closer to the site, but still had a measurable amount of radium. So interesting. Yeah, naturally. So it's the mussels were basically absorbing a lot of the radium before it could go further downstream.
Which is good for the water supply, at least downstream, but it's not good, like you said. It's indicative of there's a major problem in the water, and it's also a problem if anybody's eating those mussels or, eating the animals that eat the mussels, etc.
Right. Yep. So they also looked at other things. Along with nutrients, mussels also filter contaminants present in the water column like metals, microplastics, synthetic chemical compounds. That's the PFAS stuff that we talk about a lot here, and other emerging contaminants of concern. And if you're not paying attention to this, you're out of your mind. You need to pay attention to this. because you are directly impacted by it, or your kids are. And I've had these conversations where people say, well, I'm not going to plan on having kids. I'm like, well, that's fine, but don't be sociopathic about it and sit there and poo-poo the idea that we need clean water just because you don't give a shit. There are billions of people on the planet that deserve to be an ongoing concern and not have to ingest the whatever radioactive. I mean, it's turning into Fallout, for crying out loud, as a documentary. Let's keep going. I can't. I don't want to. The time machine is getting really warm. So the next article is in the Order of the Great, a channel that focuses on wine, but this is actually about Anchor Brewing because that's where it just got anchored to. So on Friday, Chobani founder and CEO Hamdi Ulukaya announced that he's purchased San Francisco's Anchor Brewing Company, which was closed by Sapporo USA in July 2023 after 127 years of business.
So that's interesting because it seemed like it
was
completely
gone.
went under, right?
Yep. And we had been talking about like, well, let the employees make an offer to buy it. And it's a real bummer that they didn't get to decide their own fate. And now Chobani owns this company that's been around for 127 years. And the people who made it happen, who made the company exist, don't really have a vested interest unless they are going to be owner or employee owned. And this is just an investor, right? So
true, but this Chobani, I think, has a good reputation as far as larger companies go, but that doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect at Anchor Brewing.
Right. Yeah, I hope so. Let's find out. Olivia White over at vinepair.com put the article together. We're going to pay attention to this because I actually like Anchor. I mean,
and we had just mentioned it recently.
Yeah, because we've been following it because it was such a shocking thing. Like out of the blue, they're like, okay, no, we're shuttering. And it led us to talk about the oldest, which is the oldest beer in the United States. And I thought that it was Anchor, but that's the oldest on the West Coast. The oldest on the East Coast is Yuengling, if I recall correctly.
That's correct.
And for it to close was a real shock. But what we came to find out was that Anchor was largely kind of a niche. It wasn't really exploding on the scene. And although I like them, I guess they didn't really stand out much. So hopefully Chobani can market and get their ass in more distribution centers. So again, the author of this is Olivia White over at vinepair.com. And what's said in this article is that the billionaire told the Chronicle, which is probably somebody that we should pay attention to, that he discovered Anchor Brewing in August of 2023 while reading an article about its closure. See, and this is kind of the bummer. It wasn't even on their radar. So is this really in the best furtherance of the organization if the employees could have bought it? After looking further into the historic brewery, Ulukaya learned of its importance to San Francisco and found similarities between the brewery's journey and Chobani's. Established in upstate New York in 2005, the Greek yogurt company got its start in a factory that was also on the brink of closure.
Yeah, I mean, but see, that's the thing. Maybe it connects with their purpose at Chobani.
Okay. While the price of the deal is not disclosed, the acquisition includes all of the brewery's assets, including all of its recipes. The Potrero Hill Brewing Facility and the brewing equipment in all warehouses, which is allegedly still in good shape. Allegedly, it doesn't just fall apart because it...
Exactly. It's not like it's been decades since it closed.
Yeah. It's been a year, and who knows, somebody, maybe the employees were still sitting there going, we're going to make some beer. Because why not, Well,
that might actually be good if they've kept the equipment operational.
Yeah, exactly. And it isn't stills, don't all it is a bunch of kettles and then fermenting tanks, like big ass fermenting tanks. There's no distillation, so you don't have to worry about that. But distilled beer is pretty good. Ulakaya's plans for the brewery include modernizing Potrero Hill to get the iconic beer flowing once more throughout the Bay Area as soon as possible. Ulakaya disclosed that all he's waiting for now is permission from the city and alignment with the community and the people who worked there a long time. So, cool. Bring it back operational. I think that it could be an ongoing concern if the margins for profit to the owners is in line with the future growth. Don't sit there and extract blood from a stone until everything dies around you. That's corporate necromancy, for crying out loud. I mean, it's such a burden to society that there are organizations out there that do exactly that. Just drain it, take a draw no matter what, right? If your organization isn't making money enough for you, lower the amount that you require, because you have the means, particularly when you're this big, you have the means to scale back, particularly in the investors. If you want to keep it going, then you got to figure out what the hell you're doing wrong. Don't just keep on drawing, because you're the burden, not the employees. The employees are operating under the goodwill that you are operating a business, and not just a cash cow that you're sucking money from. Anyway, I'm way off base here, way off track at least, but I'm on base. I know what I'm talking about. So it's a recognition of what makes the city truly special: our history, our institutions, and our people. Anchor Brewing has always been a beloved part of San Francisco, and thanks to Hamdi Ulakaya, it will be a part of San Francisco for years to come, she told, and she being Landon Breed, I believe, the mayor, calling the purchase not just an investment in the brewery, but in San Francisco itself. So I guess the city is on board with this as well. So, cool. There is more to this article, but the nuts and bolts of it is that Chobani has bought Anchor and will modernize it and try and get it broader distribution.
I mean, this could be good, and maybe that was what was needed for the brand to begin with.
I
think hope we read originally when it was getting shut down that part of the problem was it was relying too much on like in-person
sales,
and of course they took a major hit during the pandemic.
Yeah. Yep. So now get this stuff out, modernize it, and I don't know, start up a Squarespace site. I got nothing.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor yet. Anyway, the next article is over in Reality Hacker. It's a cyber attack that took out 600,000 routers across the country. I'm going to do this one really quick because there's really not much to it. Judy Sans.
Because that is the whole thing, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Over at Digital Trends, put the article together. A recently published research article by Lumen Technologies mentioned a cyber attack that happened last year but wasn't disclosed until now, which left over 600,000 personal routers inoperable. The attack was reportedly made possible through a malicious firmware update that erased the router's operational code, which bricked them. This is an attack that independent experts call one of the most severe cyber attacks ever against America's telecommunications sector. Interesting. So the attack happened between October 25th and 27th, 2023, and as Reuters mentioned, the malicious software was allegedly installed by hackers using specific file links that were left noticeable. Details and event descriptions in the Lumen report pointed to Windstream, an Arkansas-based ISP, as the affected ISP. But Lumen did not say who was behind it.
One ISP was basically hacked and then it led to this?
Yeah. Yeah. But regardless of who it is, the routers could not be fixed, and the only solution was to replace all the affected models. A sizable portion of this ISP's service area covers rural and underserved communities, places where residents may have lost access to emergency services, farming concerns, may have lost critical information from remote monitoring of crops during the harvest, a healthcare provider cut off from telehealth for patients' records, or a whole host of things, really. And this is what happens. Um, and it's largely when security is an afterthought. And I've always been of the mind that this is what I promote, part of the whole click with care concept, which is nothing is allowed except for what you know to have a requirement for you to gain access, right? You don't get email from anybody unless you accept that email. You don't pick up the phone unless you're expecting the call and it is somebody who says who they are. Like, you know, the phone number, and that's who you pick up, because it sounds paranoid, but if you have that mindset starting young and all the way until you're old, you can't get exploited the same way. It means that the people who would exploit you have to look elsewhere, and then they look to an ISP, and then poor training and poor critical thinking leads somebody to go,
Well, the same
well,
issues, right?
yes, yep, the same issues. So, but if you get everybody at a baseline understanding of what cybersecurity is, you can basically move the needle, build a better mousetrap, and smarter mice show up. But at some point, the mousetrap is too sophisticated. They'll go somewhere else to try and gain access to find a dumber mousetrap. And that requires that portion of the internet, and the technical carbon footprint, for lack of a better phrase, needs to evolve again. Software shouldn't allow any communication unless it's a known, very precise algorithmic access. But that's not how programming is really done. There's a lot of open doors in terms of what's accepted and unfiltered, and then it errors. And instead of erring gracefully, it bricks the firmware because the software has been compromised and the firmware fails. I'm more likely to believe that what they wanted to do was modify the firmware so it was perpetually compromised, and it failed.
Oh, like put a backdoor or something in it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just a bad install, and so all of these were bricked. I don't know about the rest of this because I haven't read any forensic analysis of it, but it's research published by Lumen Technologies, so I'll probably end up looking at this. But anyway, let's keep going. We have 3 more articles, and this next article should be pretty quick too. You might see more orange juice mixed with other fruit on store shelves this summer and here's why. Unfavorable crop conditions have left orange juice producers in a sticky situation, which, not producers. The producers are going to charge more no matter what. You, dear
The consumers
are going to pay a pretty price. So Emily Rella over at entrepreneur.com put this article together. Sometimes there's nothing better than a cold glass of orange juice to start the morning, especially in the summer, but juice lovers may be saying goodbye to breakfast as they know it. In recent months, Brazil, the largest exporter of orange juice in the world, has been experiencing a bacterial infection of citrus plants known as greening. So far, there's no cure. Coupled with the heat and adverse climate, you're going to see prices increasing. According to Reuters, again, Reuters and others are tapped to produce this stuff, like CNBC is tapped to make comment about it. Funda Citrus, Sao Paulo, and Minas Gerais, the main areas of Brazil where oranges are produced, are only expected to produce roughly 232 million boxes of 40 kilograms of oranges, a 24.36% decrease from the prior year, and the lowest production since 1988-89 harvest. So, prices for that next bag of oranges is going to be through the roof. And interestingly enough, I bought oranges prior to this announcement. So
I know.
I'll know
I mean, the
exactly how
timing
much
was
it is.
probably good.
I bought oranges and orange juice right before this. So I'm waiting to see if my next,
If you go back, yeah.
and I get sticker shock or sticky shock
Well,
because it's going to be orange
that's
juice all over the
true.
place.
I mean, this is like one of the consumer items that I feel like people are going to get so bent out of shape about. Collectively, nobody seems to be concerned about like climate change, but then they get in a tailspin if there's something that's they use every day, and it's like, why can't I get that, or why do I have to pay double for it?
So the record high right now was announced on Wednesday, $4.77 per pound of frozen concentrated orange juice, which if you've never heard of that, go watch Trading Places.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because that's the market. You'll have to go and watch it. I don't want to ruin the show, but the movie, it's a movie, old movie from the 80s. Anyway, according to Statista, the average price of orange juice in the U.S. in December of 2023 was $3.72, up from $2.34 the same time 2019. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at some point, nobody's going to be able to buy orange juice, which actually is going to start impacting the producers.
Dystopia. Welcome to Dystopia. Let's keep going. Next article is over in the Mobile channel. SpaceX wants its next Starship launch to achieve safe re-entry. First, it has not to explode. So the Starship stuff has been launching. Their old school rockets are going up and landing, and it's not a big deal. But this new one is bigger. It has heat tiles scattered all over one half of it. And if anything falls out of alignment and it doesn't go through fall back through the atmosphere properly, then it basically just annihilates itself. And that's what's happened so far. I don't understand the design. It's largely like the space shuttle. The space shuttle had issue after issue kind of a thing. And now they've got other issues with this Boeing, I forgot what the name of it was. We just tried to watch it.
Starliner?
The Starliner, yeah. And that has failed time and time again now too. We need to stick to what these conventional SpaceX rockets are, because the reliability of them is through the roof. We need to utilize that same process. So I'm not quite sure what this stands to do. We're building these more plane-like re-entry vehicles, but the sophistication of them and their ability to survive and the cost, they're trying to keep it light by not putting the tiles all over everything, but apparently that just doesn't work.
Maybe, I don't know, what's the trade-off? Safety, efficiency.
Yeah. Whatever it needs to be, do it. At least
exactly. Like, it's not a thing to cut corners on.
Yeah, make a
survivable spacecraft.
Yeah, make a survivable re-entry vehicle and then start paring back, slowly adding safety features until you figure it out. I think is kind of wrong-headed. I'd rather the first test be, let's do this. Let's build one that goes up and comes back and it's fully protected, but we load it up with sensor technology so we know what the hell is happening to every single aspect of it. Now, what's really interesting is we've watched videos about this stuff and we're like, oh, look, they have cameras inside the the liquid tanks to see what's going on when it launches. We have sensors watching all over the place, but we don't have sensors underneath each one of the tiles and around the body of it. It's only in certain places where they suspect where they need to get information. They're the brilliant ones. They're the ones that put it all together. But for crying out loud, I would rather have this massive sensor array go up, find out absolutely what's going on, and not a slight guess. Or even
determine nothing. Like, it'd be better to have that than not.
Right. So SpaceX's Starship program is gearing up for another crucial test flight next week, pending regulatory approval. This flight will focus on re-entry and landing while also gathering comprehensive flight data to improve future missions. And maybe that's exactly what they're doing. See, like all of this silver here, that doesn't have any shielding. It's only where these tiles are, and there's different types of tiles, and each one is custom fit. It needs to be pointy. It needs to be pointier, said a CEO. So dumb. Anyway, George Dvorsky from Gizmodo put the article together, but it's published over at quartzqz.com. For its upcoming fourth mission, SpaceX aims to demonstrate key capabilities of the world's largest and most powerful rocket. This looks so much like the old school space shuttles that I was like, wow, why don't we just use the space shuttle technology to launch still? Just use SpaceX rockets, because those O-rings don't fail with the frequency of a cheap ham radio. So let's follow that same path. The reason why one of the space shuttles failed is because one of the tiles got hit by insulation, caused a hole, and that hole was penetrated by plasma that basically annihilated the ship. And so we need to facilitate that, fix that, whatever that problem was, we need to remedy that. Oh, goodness. So a new Starship prototype is set to pierce the Texas skies, possibly launching in the morning of Wednesday, June 5th. This fourth fully integrated test flight, named IFT-4, is expected to reach new milestones if everything is going as planned, advancing the experimental rocket toward becoming fully operational. I'm looking forward to it. I really want them to succeed, because I want it's going to sound weird when I say this, but if you've ever watched Gattaca, they were constantly launching rockets, tick, 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 just going,
like every 10 minutes or something.
Right now, I am flabbergasted at the frequency that SpaceX launches rockets, but they're basically launching little mini satellites and Starlink satellites and other things. And every once in a while, they're sending a human up to ISS. ISS is going to be decommissioned. What I want is another space shuttle or orbiting platform.
ISS?
I want another ISS, but I want a bigger, badder, better, stronger, faster, meaner ISS.
Daft Punk?
Daft Space Punk. Daft Space. And that's what I want. And really what would be awesome is if these vehicles were actually built so that they would launch and be able to connect. And then you would have a larger launch platform right there. You know, send up something that can refuel it and launch from the orbital platform. I want Star Trek and a space platform for launching ships. Go to the moon, build a base, etc., etc. But
we're a bit of ways off, but we're getting closer to that.
Yeah. So additionally, it says SpaceX successfully completed its second wet dress rehearsal on May 23rd with the two stacked prototype stages designated Booster 11 and Ship 29. The third integrated flight of Starship, performed on March 14th, included a successful stage separation, a full duration burn of the second stage engines, an internal propellant transfer demonstration for NASA, which Boeing and this Starliner can't seem to solve. And a test of the Starling dispenser door. It's just like pooting out little Starlings. And the mission lasted an hour and 49 minutes, with the upper stage unexpectedly falling to pieces during re-entry. And I don't know why. I don't know if they've disclosed as to why, but they say that they had to destroy a booster in one attempt. And I mean, they learn a ton of things, but I still think, kind of like, remember how I said this old design of O-ring enabled fitted together rocketry that NASA has been using is just it's too old school and it just doesn't have survivability in mind.
Right.
And then lo and behold, it fails. And then I said, okay, the Starliner thing looks like it's basically a bubble gum and epoxy, and it's not going to launch. And I hope that I'm wrong. And sure enough, this thing hasn't launched yet. So I think that this, and it's like twice the budget that it was. I don't know. Come on. This thing is just so wrong-headed. And I don't think that this is right either. I think that this needs to be covered entirely in these thermal tiles to protect it.
I agree, because even if it doesn't need 100% for some reason,
Yeah.
do they really have enough data to know exactly that it's not going to change on the next launch? Or I don't know.
Just imagine if this thing comes in at a slightly incorrect angle, that plasma is going to curl around the tile and hit this metal, and off you go.
Seems like too much of a risk to save the cost of the tiles.
Yeah. And keep researching, try new things. I'd rather them put thermosensors all over this thing and find out exactly where all of the heat is going. Okay, last article for the time machine. We're running really late and it's really, really hot here. Kind of like a re-entry vehicle. That's what the time
without
machine does.
the tiles.
Yeah, without the tile. We're just sitting here in our gold thongs. Sorry, it conducts heat really well. Anyway, so the article is over. The last article for today is over in ohmTown Daily. This one will be fast, I promise, because I don't want to keep talking. We always board planes from its left side. Why? There are two reasons why we board an aircraft from the left. A historian and former airline pilot told Newsweek, and Newsweek reports it here. Sue Kim over at newsweek.com put the article together. There's no deck statement, and I don't know if this video actually has anything to do with it, but let's skip over it. You can go and watch it. All of the links are in
The show notes?
Are in the show notes. Sorry, I'm looking at something in it. The bot put it in backwards. Like why we board on the left is before Starships continued failure to launch.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Anyway, ever notice that passengers are always boarded onto a plane from the left side of the aircraft? There are distinct functional and historical reasons why this practice has remained, but it's the plane's left, not your left. So if you're looking at the plane, it's our right.
Yeah, that's true.
You're looking at the nose of the plane. So TikTok user Dougie unpacked the reasons behind it in a viral video, which shows him talking to a camera in what appears to be an airport setting. The video has 570,000 views since it was shared on March 15th. One of my videos went from having like a 100% to having a 50% like rate. And I'm always kind of astonished by that because nobody leaves a comment, and I really want to know the comment. Like, what is your reason? Why? If you downvote something, you should have to like say why.
Right.
Well, I just don't like it. Well, society needs to communicate. I'm really curious why. So I probably shouldn't, but anyway. Dan Bubb, a professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, who is an historian and former airline pilot, offered additional insight. There are two reasons. The first reason is for historical purposes, he said, referring to the times when sailors steered ships with oars to the right side because most people were right-handed. Why do I feel like that's a Snopes? Like we have to investigate this.
It sure seems like it.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut this short. This is meant for ships to come into port. They would be boarded by the left side or port side. It remained a tradition while boarding passenger planes, he explained. The other reason pertains to safety and operational efficiency. There are many ground operations taking place on the right side of the plane, such as fueling, loading, unloading bags, catering. It would be very dangerous to board passengers on that side of the plane while these operations are taking place, but frankly,
But why couldn't all that be on the left side and the port on the right? But I find it interesting that it's based on ships, assuming that is accurate.
Yeah, that one, I feel like I want to know more, but I'm not a planologist, so a plane boarding historian. I'm sure that person is. That's what they do. So the latest viral post comes as the air travel industry continues to see strong growth in the post-COVID-19 pandemic area, but I don't know. April passenger demand in April was reported to be up 11% compared to April 2023, according to the International Air Transport Association on Thursday. Yeah. There's more over here in this article, quite a bit more about the history. In a February 2023 Reader's Digest article, commercial pilot Andrew Stagg expanded on the nautical link, saying passengers had to board and disembark boats from the left, the port side, due to a rudder-like part found on the right side of the boat. Most airplane and jetway designers followed the same convention. A rudder-like part found on the right side of the boat?
Is it a rudder?
Like, see, but I don't understand that. When? Now I got to go and look at when that time frame, because yeah, there used to be on the back, like a gondola. They're actually on one side of the boat. They stand on one side of the boat. And then sometimes they run over to some other area or whatever. But, and then in history, I've seen other boats where the rudder is actually fixed on one side of the boat, not in the middle, because the whole bow of the ship, the keel of the ship is the strongest portion of it from stem to stern. So you don't want to sit there and attach something that compromises that strength. So you can attach something to the left or right of it, and then you just sit there and steer the rudder. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to go and look. I'm gonna end up going down the rabbit hole about this stuff.
Well, then there was a different thing in here that said United started with their right-hand passenger door, but then they tried to standardize, and it all standardized to the left. So there's at least two different things in here.
Yeah. So I think this might be one of those retconning kind of things, like, oh, let's just find some reason, like they go into a tomb and they say that it was a burial site, but what it really was something completely different. But somebody said, hey, let's stick a body in here, that kind of a thing. A backronym or something like that, you know, where they figure out how to, it needs to be retconned and make sense so that we can grasp it. But
right. I did do a quick search to see if I could find anything related for Snopes, but I didn't turn anything up. But I didn't do an extensive search.
Yeah, we're not looking too hard today. It's a time machine issue. So that's it, folks. We're going to have to turn off the time machine, which means we have to race all the way back down Main Street, looking left and right at all of our articles, 10 of them today alone. If I shut down the time machine, is it safe?
Well, wait. No, you can't, because this is for May 31st.
I know. We're here in May 31st. If I shut down the time machine, we're going to snap to the...
But you can't do that in a time machine episode.
All right. Well, I know. I'm going to turn it off. All right. I know. I understand. We're going to... If we impact the temporal causality, we're going to have a problem here.
Yeah, I think we're going to not be able to get back.
Okay. Well, we'll do it this way then. Thank you all for hanging out for our time machine episode. We will have another ohmTown Daily News show in about 3 hours or so. After ohmTown Daily News show, we will have Reality Hacker, Wanted, and Warcrafters, as well as the 5 o'clock, maybe 5:15 ohmTown Daily News show. But we're getting ready for it, so thank you very much for hanging out. I am Mayor Watt, and above me is the sentient AI from the future.
Bye-bye, ohmTown citizens. Thanks for joining us for ohmTown Daily.
A little bit longer of a pause right there, and I would have done this. And I would have stepped all over your line, even though we don't have lines. See ya, everybody. Bye-bye.